Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again and welcome to episode 86 of this series, and this time we're going to find out about another key role in pantomime, somebody who works across all of the departments, the production manager.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
In the last episode we heard from a veteran with 25 years of panto experience, the stage, television and film actor Nathan Guy. Don't worry if you missed that or any of the other previous episodes, they are all still available. And if you've missed them, well, so far we've talked with celebrities and backstage team members, practitioners and academics about how pantomime is produced, its history and its future. So make sure you check them out where you normally get your podcasts from, and don't forget to subscribe to the series so that you don't miss any future episodes. This time, we're going to take a look at the role of the production manager, and I'm delighted to say I've been joined by the man who's a freelance stage and production manager, sound engineer and lighting technician, previously one of the directors at Production Element, a UK company specialising in fashion and music festival events, but he also has a lot of experience as a production manager on many pantomimes for Imagine. Andy Nurse, how are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Tell us a bit about your background, first of all. In fact, why don't we talk about what you do and how you went from Production Element to freelance?
Well, actually, it's quite a funny story. Due to the sort of COVID times, actually, Production Element has stopped trading. And it was kind of, we did a lot of the creative concepts on stage and all those bits and pieces, mainly in fashion shows and stuff like that. But due to kind of like sort of things happening in COVID and the industry itself kind of going downhill, it was a decision for myself to actually stop trading on that and actually become more of a freelancer, focusing more on the live events and all those bits and pieces. So it was a good thing in the end. So it wasn't a bad thing to sort of end it, because it gave me more of a push to do kind of more of the live technical aspects.
So what sort of things do you do now?
At the moment, I do a lot of sort of sound engineering live on the kind of festival season stuff, doing touring with bands and bits and pieces, also covering the lighting aspect, and also sort of the beginning of this year I did a 7-week tour with a band doing all the LED screens. So it's kind of covering all the technical sides of touring and on the road.
Can you tell us who those bands are?
Well, the one I did this in the beginning of this year was a Canadian band called Simple Plan. Looked after the on-stage lighting and also the video screens, and we sort of toured the whole of Europe. Really nice guys.
So how did you get into the industry in the first place? Was it something that you got interested in at school, for instance, or was it something that developed as you got older?
At school, I mean, when I was a young age, I was always into music, so I sort of played an instrument, played the cello actually from the age of sort of 3 or 4, and then sort of just progressed and got really interested in performing music. Obviously did GCSEs and A-levels in music, but then went to university sort of looking into music and actually found that I'm not really a performer. I'd rather be behind the scenes. So I did a degree in music technology, and that was actually up in Hull. And from that, I did actually meet a lot of people who sort of do all the sort of the behind the scenes, the live technical aspect of all shows and stuff, and managed to land a job sort of building stages and doing all the hard work up in Hull. And then sort of moved down south to do more shows, and then it just kind of word of mouth, just then decided to go freelance.
Lots of people have an interest. They may be a member of a youth theatre, or they may be interested on school plays, that sort of thing, on the technical aspects. They may go into lighting, they may go into sound, they could go into set building, all those sorts of things. You have a bit of an expertise, really, in all of those areas, don't you?
Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, I mean, the thing I would suggest to anyone if they want to do kind of get into this industry, it's kind of the field, sort of the way I took it was to get a full-time job with a smaller company that covers quite a lot of these aspects. So like I said, I started with a sort of staging company, so I gained a bit of experience in the rigging aspect, the lighting aspect, the sound aspect, and obviously all the stage builds. And then from that, I moved to another company where I gained a lot of experience in the set building side of it. And then from that, you make your contacts. You can then choose to go freelance and actually then get into more of the areas you want to cover. So sort of, it's sort of easier and better to kind of try and be open to all aspects, and actually makes you decide which part of it you really enjoy.
Maybe 30 years ago, it was fairly easy to have knowledge in all those areas. But each of those areas is far more technical now than it ever was, in terms of, music, editing, mixing, lighting, programming, all of those technical aspects are so much more complicated, aren't they?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I sound, I've tried to keep up to date with it. I try to sort of, because it's all gone digital and there's so many different types of desks, different types of systems to do everything. And I've tried to stay on the pulse with that. But yeah, with lighting, I will plug a light in, but I won't go anywhere near the desk. And because it's just, yeah, it's very difficult. And it's a very, very specialist sort of area now. And the same with video. I mean, obviously, like, you know, it used to be, like you say, you could just put a projector on, and plug your laptop in and you're sorted. But now there's so many different ways, especially like with the pantos we've done in the past with all the LED screens and stuff. There's so much going on. You need someone with real expertise to kind of know what they're doing. And yeah. I wouldn't go near it.
Well, somebody in the audience probably doesn't appreciate any of this, really. They just come and enjoy a great show. But when you're using video or any sort of animation, things like that on the LED screen, they have to match the soundtrack, if you like. Any music, be it live or on track, has to work with everything else. It has to be synchronized, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the rehearsal weeks, the tech weeks, and all that stuff. It's so integral with the LED screens and like all the content they've done. And, you know, some of the stuff they've done is absolutely incredible. But like you say, yeah, to get it all talking together and stuff, it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. A lot of experienced people with a lot of expertise.
The LED screens that Imagine is sort of pioneering, really, with Panto is fabulous. But concerts have been doing that, you know, and you'll know all about this for a number of years, haven't they?
Yeah, they have their kind of songs and they have their videos or their visuals and all that stuff to complement stuff. And especially now, what I found with like you say, with the live music, LED screen, it did start a while ago and it's getting more and more popular because, like with festivals, they're daytime gigs, so lighting's not really going to have any effect on these on the shows, so they really use LED. And going back to sort of Imagine's way of doing stuff with the LED, it just brings the set to life. I mean, obviously I know there's kind of the analog way of, you know, all the cloths with painted stuff, and it does have that is a bit of magic with theatre, but I really feel with the LED stuff it complements it and enhances it. It doesn't take it away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. It's incredible. It adds such a different dimension to it as well. Obviously, in music, not only will you have LED screens with the videos that have been pre-recorded and stuff, but you have live camera feeds as well, won't you?
I remember when they sort of first started doing the LED with the stuff, and they were putting cameras on the end of microphone stands and everything, and it just looked incredible because they were cutting from visuals to live band members and actually making the band members actually feel like they're on a music video as opposed to on stage, and it just really added to it. It was really, really clever stuff.
So, as a kid, do you remember going to see Panto?
I do, actually. I remember my very first Panto was it was Jack and the Beanstalk. It was Russ Abbott who was in it. And yeah, I mean, it was a very long time ago. It was in Stoke. And the only thing I really remember was that Russ Abbott was on for a very long time and just him on his own. So I think his kind of walk-on bit did go on for a very long time. But yeah, it was a very long time ago.
How old would you have been? Do you know?
Oh, I must have been about maybe 7 or 8. So yeah, and I don't remember much about the set, but I do remember Russ Abbott being on for a very long time and not remembering much of the storyline.
Was there anything else that struck you about Panto after that? It could be, if you're interested in the technical side, it could have been the spectacle itself. It could have been the audience involvement, the fact that you were allowed to shout and scream and boo and so on. What really struck you about Panto in general?
I think that was it. It was the fact that you could just shout out. There was no kind of like, you know, stop being, you know, got to be quiet. You're watching theatre. It was it was very different to going to see a show. Because my parents did take me to some of the West End shows. I remember seeing like sort of Phantom of the Opera and all that stuff, where it's very different. You know, you've got to sit and not get involved. And then obviously going to see something like Panto, it was, you were kind of part of the show, and it was very good. Yeah.
So when did you first start getting involved in theatre and indeed Panto professionally?
Obviously at school and college I was always into like the theatre side of it, and I did actually help a lot by just being the one-man band behind the scenes, and I sort of did it with musicals and everything through college. But actually with theatre sort of professionally, I would actually say it was probably back in 2013 when I did my first Panto for Imagine. Yeah, it was in Grimsby, and it was because I didn't do a lot of lot of work in theatre. I knew a lot about it, but it was my path took the live element and all the corporate side. So that was kind of an eye-opening thing. It was, so it was back in 2013 in Grimsby.
And was that as a production manager?
Yes, it was, yes.
So how different was it compared to all the other stuff that you'd done previously?
I think that one of the main things was it was kind of the way things are done. Because obviously in corporate and live events, you're in either in the morning or the day before, you do the show and you go. Whereas theatre has a bit more of a different standard of things, and obviously the way they do things in theatre, the different types of callings, different names for everything, how you rig everything. So it was a real eye opener, and I did learn a lot from that first experience. And it's theatre versus live. It's very, very different.
I guess as well, a lot of people who work in panto will say it's all really tight. We only have a couple of weeks to rehearse and get the show opened. But compared to the stuff that you were doing, which was literally go in the day before and then you do it and go again, you have a bit more time. It might feel a bit more relaxed for you.
It sometimes does, but it sometimes doesn't, because you're limited to what the theatre can offer. Whereas in sort of live events and stuff, it's kind of an open playing field, and you design or you build stuff that is like an outdoor stage and stuff. That's it. It's that size. That's it. Whereas with theatres, you're taking sets from other that's been designed for other venues and put them into into that venue, so you're limited on that. You're also you're restricted to what equipment they have there sometimes, because one of the things I love about panto, and I think I'm hoping it still carries on this way, is that they use in-house a lot, so it becomes a joint production. And there's so much passion with the in-house team, because when you sort of with touring theatre and stuff, the in-house guys don't really get a look in on actually being involved in the show. And I think it's a really good thing with panto that the actual theatre uses a lot of their own staff to actually be part of the show. And I think it really reflects on, especially quite a lot of the shows I've done, how much involvement they have, how much they care, how much they want to do on the actual show.
I think you're absolutely right, especially for venues that generally only have short runs, one-nighters and so on, because the backstage staff really only do get-ins, get-outs, and they don't really have any ownership of the shows, do they?
No, absolutely not. And I think and you can really see it when you arrive on site to start building sets and stuff. They're just really, really enthusiastic, really want to do stuff, really want to help. And, obviously, and especially with the new theatres, like with the new shows, like the digital pantos, they're just really excited because they can learn so much more from it, because it's not just a couple of cloths and, and a set and stuff. With a full LED screen, loads of like moving lights, and it's a full-on production, and they seem to really engage with it.
Okay, so for those people who may work in panto, but certainly for those who don't, just explain, if you can, the role of the production manager on the pantos that you've worked on. How early do you get involved? Because obviously you don't just turn up on the first day of the get-in.
No, it's a lot of planning. There's a lot of planning, and there's lots of like production meetings, and so it kind of starts. I mean, the bookings generally, the contracts try to be agreed in sort of April, and then from that you do a first production meeting where you're just meet and greet with all the the creatives, all that side of it, and you start looking at the set, the theatres, how it's all going to fit in, and then timetables and all that side of it. And then you move on sort of a couple of months later, then you're looking at actually visiting the venue, talking to the in-house team, talking about what days you can actually get in if they've got bookings, because realistically, especially with the technical ones, you want at least a week before the show goes live to actually build the set, actually have all the rehearsals and the dress runs. So I'd say it's about April when we start putting the thing in, and then July is when we kind of start ironing out everything, and sort of September is when we have our kind of last production meeting where we actually run through all the bits and pieces, what timings, when the truck's arriving, all the logistics of the actual show itself.
And as you said, it's not like the event stuff that you do where you basically build the stage, design whatever you're going to do, and that is the size, and it will go and fit wherever it needs to go. Every venue for panto or theatre in general has its own limitations, and that can be even from the dock area for the get-in, along with things like the stage specifications and the lighting rig and so on.
One venue I worked at last year, they have a very small dock and a very small kind of backstage, so you obviously have to build into the thought process of that. And we have a truck that stays outside that could. You've basically got to work out who delivers stuff first. So if the set comes in one day, we know there's not enough space to get lighting in, so they either come in a bit earlier or a bit later, just so everything works around each other. And then we have a lever truck on site for the whole duration, just so it can store all the empty flight cases and things like that. So yeah, there's lots of things to think about in that respect as well.
I've actually known theatres as well which are so limited in space backstage, and with large sets and trucks maybe, that they leave one of the haulage trucks on site for the whole run, and it's backed right up to the dock door, and set off stage can go straight into that out of the way during the run of the show.
Yeah, they do have a kind of Act 1 preset and an Act 2 preset, and yeah, anything that's in Act 2 is in the truck, and then in the interval it's all swapped around, yeah. Once
you get to the venue, there will be things that will come up that you have to deal with, and that can be quite challenging because again you've got a tight turnaround, haven't you?
It's kind of the timetable and making sure for the bills and stuff. It's because you've got so many different heads of department and stuff to deal with. It's making sure everyone's like on the same page, and and hopefully they're flexible if things do go wrong. So obviously, you will have sound, lighting, sets, video if it is on the show. They're all coming in at a certain point, and they've all got to work to a certain deadline. And obviously if things happen, like you say, if rigging's behind so they can't get the video wall on, you then have to talk to all departments and make sure that we're going to be okay and we can move on and still be ready for sound checks and bits and pieces. So yeah, there's always going to be something when you get to site. No matter how much planning you do, there will be some element, from a truck being stuck in the snow because it's Christmas time, or just simple things like a motor failing on a rigging point, or there is always little factors. But when you've got as long as your communication with all the teams is there, generally people know things happen, and they're quite good about it.
And 9 times out of 10, all the planning that you've done will be absolutely fine. But sometimes, for instance, you may plan, do all the measurements, and a set will fit as you expected it to, but then the sight lines don't work, or for some reason it just doesn't look right. So then you've actually got to resolve that, during that process.
Sight lines is my kind of Achilles heel. There's one venue where there's a guy who's just really a real stickler for sight lines, and he's brilliant from the start. And yeah, it is one of those, like you say, you can have this amazing looking set, and then you sit in, because like you say, certain theatres are so wide, anyone who's left or right of the stage can just see straight in and see all the wings and all the activity. And you do have to, like you say, you either have to move the set or put up a lot of blacks or things like that. But yeah, sightlines is always been an issue, especially with the digital sets.
And some of the panto venues, and I've worked for 10 years at one of those venues, which isn't actually a theatre, it's a concert hall, and so the process has to start with the whole rig and a false proscenium and all that being built before the sets can even go in, and that becomes a major undertaking then, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we did my first panto at Grimsby. It's kind of an auditorium, so it hasn't really got a stage. It's all on like raised decking and stuff. And again, that's kind of a mother grid of truss, but everything was on tab tracks for all the cloths because they couldn't hang anything up in the air. So again, obviously with cloths being certain different heights, only by 100 millimeters and things like that, you have to adjust all the tab tracks to work and stuff. When you're in theatre, you love the fact that there's flies and all that stuff, and it's brilliant. But then, like you say, with the concert halls, the auditoriums, you have to, you're kind of going in 2 or 3 days before just to build an actual stage.
And just to add another layer to all of this, so you may have to, build the stage, you may have to build a lighting rig, you may have to, make the set fit and all those other things. You may obviously have to make sure the LED screens work in every way, but then there might be another layer on top of that. I'm talking about things like flying, Peter Pan, where Peter Pan and the kids all fly, or you may have a flying carpet in Aladdin, or a Cinderella coach and horses that takes off. So that's also got to be factored into all of the sort of production period, hasn't it?
You have to do all the sort of health and safety with most of it. I mean, with the flying, it's Foy's, who's a company that's brilliant at it, and they know the Peter Pan script really well. But yeah, like with that, you obviously got to have a lot more rigging, so a lot more space is required. So in a traditional theatre, you're losing a lot of bars just to have the flying in, which obviously limits where the set goes and where the lighting has to be positioned and stuff like that. With the horse and the flying carpet, again, you have to look at entrances on and off stage where they're coming in and out, because they're slightly wider and stuff. And again, that affects your going back to sight lines, the wider the entrance, and especially with the horses and stuff and the carpet. I mean, I remember doing I did Dick Whittington, which I really enjoyed. That has obviously a boat that weighs a lot of weight, and it took a lot of strain on the stage. We had to put some metal plates down because it was ending up sinking through it. But again, that has to be stored somewhere, and it's only used for 5 minutes of the show. It looks amazing, but again, that's another thing you have to factor in, is where's it going to live, how's it going to get on stage, and again, you have to then relay back to the director and stuff about timings and changeover, because I know that they obviously Imagine have the script, and they know they've done the show several loads of times, but then obviously different venues, you don't know where these items are stored, and like changeover times, and in between, do we have to slightly extend this bit just so that we can get it on and get it all working?
Yeah, I've done Dick Whittington a couple of times for Imagine, and the ship is incredible. And if it's the one that I use, that you use, the bottom front of the ship opens up so you can see inside the ship.
Yes,
and then the actors can go on the deck as well at the top, and it rocks from side to side. Unfortunately, sometimes, you can plan everything and then get into the venue, and you find that when the actors are on the top deck, you may not see their heads, because they're actually the heads are so high they're almost up in the lighting rig. Again, all that stuff has to be ironed out, doesn't it?
Some of those things, like you say, they get a little bit overlooked because it's it's a feature, we know it's going to work, and then obviously it comes to the rehearsal schedule, and then you actually look at it and go, okay, we might need to either replot that or look at, can we get the flies in to lift the, when you're fortunate enough to be in a theatre and you've got got flies, they're quite happy to go, yeah, we can lift it a little bit, lift the header up just so we can see them. But like you say, if you're looking down and you're restricted and you can't do that, then yes, they have to replot it and put the actors elsewhere.
I guess as well, when we're into that production period, the actors will be rehearsing in a rehearsal room, maybe in the same venue. You'll be involved in the get-in. Then when we get to the technicals, ahead of the dress rehearsals, you're almost like a liaison between the director, the lighting, sound guys, all the backstage team, everybody, and you've got your eyes on that health and safety thing as well at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, when they do because I try to get in to see the actual show in the rehearsal rooms for the producer run, just so you get a gauge of how it's all happening. I mean, obviously, before they get to site, they're either their company manager or whoever's in charge does a markup on site. So they try and obviously take down the floors and everything with the actual size of the stage, where the mid stages, where the cloths are coming in for their performance side of it. So they do have a rough idea, but obviously when they get onto stage, it's completely different to what they really think.
You're a mediator at times, because there will be various departments that aren't happy with something. If they want something changed, that might change some other area as well. So you're a go-between, aren't you, really, in many ways?
Yeah, there's a lot of negotiation. I think sometimes when you come to the end of it, you feel you could be a politician. Just how much negotiation, how much, how much you have to do stuff. But with a production manager, especially in Panto, I do feel it's not a bad thing, but I think there's a lot of politics you've got to be aware of when you go to site. So obviously like you say, you use the in-house staff who are brilliant, but they have their way of doing stuff, and I never say it's the wrong way. It's just that everyone has a different way, and obviously me being in a different kind of field, I do things differently as well. But you've got to respect that you're a guest in the theatre, and if it's not affecting anyone and it's fine, then go their way, because it's their theatre in the end.
I tell you what, most politicians couldn't do what you do, but you could probably do what most politicians do.
Well, yeah, I don't think I'd ever be in that field.
I don't know how many times you've seen Panto or worked on Panto, but do you have a favourite title?
I don't know. I mean, I like I said, I really enjoyed Dick Whittington, and that was done in Scotland. So it was particularly funny because obviously they were going to London and they weren't very keen on going to London. So they added the Scottish element, and I thought I really enjoyed that whole production, and that was one I was working on up in Scotland. But yeah, because I've done the digital pantos now for, I think it's last 3 or 4 years. I do particularly enjoy Cinderella because it was their first kind of one they launched as the digital side of it, and I do feel that is a really good one as well.
When you first saw that, maybe at the tech or the dress rehearsal with the whole thing together, actors, the LED screens, and everything else, what did it feel like? Did it feel groundbreaking?
It did. I mean, when I found out, because they did the first year, and then I joined the second year with the digital because I was doing one up in Scotland, and I was kind of a bit sceptical, being a lover of the analog cloths and in all those bits of the pieces. I think, how's this going to work then? Is it going to, is it just going to be a flat LED screen and just have it feels like a cloth, and then they change the screen every scene and all that stuff? Thinking, I didn't think it was going to be. I was skeptical about it, and then obviously I then saw it, and then obviously it was just how they did the set and how it was all cleverly done. So they're not really changing a cloth; they're actually changing the whole look of the show and how it's designed and how it all incorporates into the set with the screen. It was groundbreaking, yes, and it was the first because that was the first panto I took my son to, because I think he was old enough just to start enjoying it. So so that's why it was obviously had another impact, was that it was my son's first panto on it.
I think the interesting thing is, and many people say, you enjoy panto as a child and as you get older, but then when you go with your own children, it's a completely different experience, and you end up possibly watching your own child more than the actual show, because their response is incredible, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then also, I think, I mean, what I've tried to push for all the school he's at and stuff is that I do feel more schools, especially in the area I live, they should really push to take more kids to panto, because I think it's because they're blown away by it, and it's just like you say, how you can just like we said earlier, how they can just shout and be themselves during a theatre show is incredible.
I think as well that people have said for centuries probably pantomime's had its day. When movies and talkies and videos and television all came along, PlayStations, kids won't want to go to panto anymore, it's old hat. It's actually continued to evolve. Kids love it just as much now as they ever did, and I think the LED screens can only help, can't they?
When we did Beauty and the Beast, because that was their latest digital show a couple of years ago, and the way they've done the video and the content for that is it's kind of like a game. So you're going into you visit the village, but you actually track into the village, and then you track out the village into things. And that the wow factor you got from all the school kids when it opened, the opening number came and it just zoomed into the village and stuff. It was just, they were all going wow, and the audience response was incredible.
I can tell that you love doing it, but now as a freelance with the work stacking up, it means that you're not going to be able to do it this year. How does that feel?
No, I know. I mean, it was kind of it's very upsetting actually, because it's been, like say, since 2013, and obviously missing only the one because of the COVID. Yeah, it is a shame, because to me it's Christmas. Going down, spending. I mean, it depends on how many productions I'm on, but it could be about 2 to 3 weeks on spending on these things, and it's really sad this year because I've sort of taken a different direction, and unfortunately I'm not available this year. But that being said, I am still trying to come in and do a couple of days help to do the get-in, but not as a production manager, but hopefully be able to have some free time just to help with the get-ins and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be weird because I don't know what to do this year, because it's and last year I decided to actually stay, because the hard thing for a production manager is you're there for a week, maybe 10 days, and then that's it. You're gone and the show starts, and you do build a really good relationship with the cast, the crew, the theatre itself. And so it was always, every year it's always like, oh, that's a shame, I've got to go now. And then you sort of see them either on the get out or later on. So last year I did agree to do a technical supervisor role for one of the digital pantos, and I was there for obviously the full 4 weeks, and it was very different to actually be there for the whole thing, and it was it was good to be there and be part of the team. It was quite fun. But this year it is sad. I know that I'll be at Christmas and I'll be trying to bang down Imagine's door saying, what else do you need help with? I'm free.
Well, I tell you what, if you've got a son, you've got to definitely go and see at least one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one I did last year and the year before. Luckily, that's really local to where I live, so which is great. And yeah, it's the first time, because the past ones I've done for them have been either up north, up in Scotland, and I've never had a local one. So they did one very local to us, which is this year I'll have to buy tickets this time.
Well, listen, continued success with all the event and fashion work that you're doing. You're obviously a very busy man, so if you can't do panto, you've got to have every good reason, because you love it so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Andy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for now, I'm afraid. Please remember to subscribe through your favourite podcast app, and make sure you join me, Martin Ballard, next time for episode 87, when I'll be taking you behind the scenes at this season's final Imagine photo shoot day.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.